Radio Play Comics is meant to adapt the stories, mostly, of great unadapted, old and forgotten comics from the past. I use voice acting and narration to abridge the work as much as possible without lessening its impact, and to bring these stories to life the best way I can. Please enjoy. Hi, I'm Nick, and welcome to the Fusion Space for today's episode of Radio Play Comics, X-Men, Fatal Attractions. Published in 1993, this story was written to celebrate the X-Men's 30th anniversary, and features Magneto attacking the entire Earth on behalf of mutants from his asteroid base in orbit. And it's up to the X-Teams, X-Factor, X-Force, and the X-Men to stop him after he shuts down almost all the technology on the planet with his magnetic powers, and a final issue of Excalibur will wrap up the 6-issue main storyline. This story is best known now for being the battle where Magneto ripped the adamantium out of Wolverine's skeleton, nearly killing him and revealing his bone claws beneath the metal, and Wolverine would go on to make do with his bone claws for roughly 5 years afterward. But without the poisonous metal his healing factor had been forced to constantly combat, he was lighter, faster, and healed much more quickly than before, somewhat making up for the advantages he had lost. But before we begin, I'll provide a bit of context so you understand where the X-Men are at emotionally as the conflict begins. Magneto has recently vanished and is presumed dead. His personal army, the Acolytes, run roughshod over the Earth, opposed as they often are by the X-Men, who contain and repel their threat. Magneto is a mutant supremacist, and his Acolytes are even more vicious than he was in their attack on humanity, seeking revenge for their supposedly slain master, who has left behind only a suit of shattered armor on his throne. Meanwhile, the X-Men tend to Colossus' little sister, Illyana, who is suffering the effects of the mysterious legacy virus, which has disrupted her mutant powers, and has thus far proven to be incurable, and looks to be terminal as well. Peter Rasputin, also known as Colossus, comforts his sister while he can, until he is called away by a mission, and then Professor Xavier fools the girl with his powers into seeing him as still being at her bedside, as work continues to find a cure, but alas, no progress is made. When the girl goes into convulsions after the virus moves from attacking her mutant powers to attacking her very cellular structure, all Professor X can do is provide her with a virtual reality helmet, built with alien technology, that eases her suffering. His X-Men gather to be at her side, including Illyana and Peter's friend, Kitty Pryde. Jubilee comes to terms with her jealousy of Kitty, and they soon all prepare for the worst as Illyana finally slips away from reality, her young life ending all too soon, and seemingly for no reason. A senseless tragedy all the X-Men will mourn for a long time to come. Colossus returns to find that it is all over, and he falls into a stoic silence, refusing to share his pain with anyone, and unable to revert to his human form due to a recent head injury, the attending to of which is forgotten in the shuffle in preparation for Illyana's funeral. Jubilee takes the death very hard, but Jean Grey is there to comfort her and reassure her that the X-Men will get through this tragic event together. If things weren't bad enough already, Magneto has also returned, taking up residence in Asteroid M, his floating satellite base, and he summons his acolytes to him, as well as having his powerful new ally Exodus make offers to select mutants he has chosen to offer sanctuary to about his floating headquarters, to spare them the devastation he plans to unleash upon the human world. Magneto has been through many changes of late, and is now more powerful than he has ever been before. In fact, he is the most powerful mutant alive, and the threat he poses by interacting with the Earth's magnetic field is nearly unimaginable. As the X-Men mourn, the master of the Fatal Attraction prepares to make his move. Magneto's acolytes teleport into a human hospital. They tell the nurse on duty that they're here to murder flat scans, their term for normal humans. They leap into action, hurling helpless patients against the walls and punching holes through their frail bodies. They scream that they are doing this in Magneto's name. They crash through the walls into the patient's rooms to continue the slaughter. The acolyte Senyaka wraps his electrified cables around a nurse's neck, the nurse who is relating all of this to X-Factor.
Why? What possible reason could you have for... Ah! I'll never forget what the one with the whip.
Senyaka.
What Senyaka said to me.
You flatscans just don't get it, do you? You never get it. You deserve this. This, and worse.
Deserve it? What in God's name did any of us do to deserve to be treated like that? The way the acolytes look at it, Leslie, your biggest mistake was being born human. Then what they say is true? The mutants, they hate us just for being normal?
Normal is a relative concept, Nurse Murray.
But I didn't mean...
I know you didn't. And I want you to know that the followers of Magneto are no more typical examples of mutant kind than Hitler's were typical examples of humankind. X-Factor wouldn't be here investigating this atrocity, much less working for the federal government, if we were cut from the same cloth as those. I can't think of a word loathsome enough.
Come on, Alex. Pietro, Leslie needs her rest. Wait. What kind of man can this Magneto be to inspire such insanity?
That's a question I've asked myself too many times over too many years.
Boop, boop, boop.
The nurse's EKG flatlines.
What is it? What's wrong? Out of here, now! We're losing her! We're losing her!
Marking 30 years of excellence. The man who wasn't there. X-Factor had one of the mutants from the attack under guard as they prepare to interrogate him. He resists until Quicksilver arrives, the son of Magneto, who the Acolytes view as a literal messiah. The Captain Mutant kneels before him and agrees to talk. The information he gives them is about Project Wideawake. A new team of Sentinels have been built to be used against mutants, and attacking their base is the Acolytes' next move. X-Factor relayed this to their government handler, but rather than leading the team, she only takes Quicksilver and a mutant mercenary of her own to the base, leaving X-Factor behind. Her gamble is that Quicksilver will have the same effect on the other Acolytes as the captive, and X-Factor would only cause a fight and get in the way. However, the team are able to reach the base without her help.
The Senate decided that the private sector has had control of the Sentinels for too long. So
they decided to go into the mutant slaughtering business for themselves. And you knew about this?
Havoc, I specifically ordered you to...
I don't want to hear another lecture about following orders, Mein Fuhrer. Just answer the question. Have you known about this all along?
Gentlemen, ladies, the first responsibility of a democracy is to the majority. The sad truth is, the majority of Americans fears mutant kind. And frankly, as long as there are maniacs like the Acolytes out there, their fears are wholly justified.
You want reason to fear us? Then just wait till you see what we do to your precious prototypes. I didn't think you'll...
Ron, no.
What? Pietro, you can't be.
I can't be serious? You should know by now that I'm the most serious man alive. And with good reason. I understand the psyches of the Acolytes and their kind far better than you, or Val, or Senator Kelly ever could. Because the blood of their savior runs in my veins. He may not have raised me, but make no mistake, I am Magneto's son. And my inheritance has been a grisly one. I know the broken heart that curses Homo sapiens with every angry beat. I know the twisted mind that actually takes pride in being called an evil mutant. I'm not going to explain or debate the forces that create such men, that drove me to such desperate ends. Because the only pertinent question is, do these men exist? And if they do humans have a right to protect themselves from them, in whatever way they can?
Are you saying that they do?
My father may be dead, but his presence lives on. The man who isn't there, sowing the seeds of hatred in frightened, embittered mutants. I believe to the bottom of my soul that humankind not only has a right to protect itself from Magneto's legacy, it must protect itself.
Just then, the Acolytes burst through the wall of the Sentinel's base. X-Factor rushed to attack the incoming Acolytes. The mercenary Random unleashes a massive blast at them. Senator Kelly watches the team on a view screen. Senyaka wraps his cables around Random's arms, but he withstands their damaging touch and hauls Senyaka in and grabs him. He blasts him away with his gun arms. Polaris exchanges energy with an acolyte as another grabs Strong Guy, who throws him into a wall and crumbles it on him. Strong Guy absorbs the energy, growing larger and stronger, and slugs the villain. Multiple Man faces 2 acolytes on his own, but not for long as he divides himself to outnumber them. Havoc writhes in a large acolyte's grip as they argue over destroying the Sentinels until he breaks free and unleashes his energy attack on his head.
Yeah!
Fabian Cortez, leader of the Acolytes as Magneto's second in command, addresses Quicksilver.
Pathetic, isn't it? Brother against brother, while the humans prepare their weapons of genocide. You could end this, you know. Instantly. Yes, son of Magnus. I'm talking to you. Then talk, but be quick about it. I'm not a very patient man.
A wild green acolyte tears into the Multiple Man. Jamie Madrox shoves his fist into its toothy maw and slams his other hand on the ground, triggering his duplication inside him and exploding his scaly body. An acolyte reaches Senator Kelly as he orders the Sentinels to withdraw, and she attempts to kill him, but he is saved by a member of X Factor, who chides him for his anti-mutant rhetoric.
This has all been staged for your benefit, you know. Mine? Don't feign surprise, Pietro. I saw you down there, standing apart from the others, observing, pondering. You tower above us all, son of Magnus. To your dull eyes I appeared to be standing still, Cortez, but in the time it took you to blink, I was across this complex several times, saving the lives of the humans you're so desperate to destroy. You almost said flat scans, didn't you? An abhorrent term. An apt one, as you well know. If there's a point to this, I'd advise you to make it now. You're getting on my nerves. Your father was a visionary. My father was a... And you share that vision. Madman! No matter how hard you may try to deny it, repress it. Agree to lead the Acolytes, Pietro. Guide them to the promised land your father dreamed of. And I'll call an end to this mindless bloodletting this very instant. Guide your band of demented little brown shirts on a bloody crusade against everyone they hate and fear? Do you really expect me to jump for joy and agree to such an absurd suggestion? Agree? No. But I do expect you to ponder it. You can't deny the urgings of fate, son of Magnus. You have been chosen to... My fate is my own, Cortez. I choose what I want to do, where I want to go. Go ahead, kill me. It won't change anything. The truth I bring is one you already know. You are Magneto's son, Magneto's heir. And no matter how fast you run, your heritage will overtake you. In the end. Now, Voight, transport us out of here. No! I'll see you again, Pietro. Very soon, I think. Hey, I thought this was a no-smoking zone. They're taking off. But why? They didn't take out the Sentinels, or do any major damage to the base.
Perhaps our aims weren't as obvious as all that, Havoc. Perhaps our main goal today was to plant a seed, which in time will grow into an oak so tall, so strong, that even the Lord Magnus himself,
Cortez and the Acolytes teleport away,
would look upon it with awe.
The Sentinels! What if I was wrong? What if they managed to teleport them out too?
Alex, look, they're gone. No, it was Kelly. He had a backup plan to move the Sentinels out before... Val? Val, what's wrong? I don't...
X-Force's handler coughs up a thick green substance.
Val? Oh, what is that horror?
Hey, Val, it's nothing to be embarrassed about. I did the same thing back on the ship and... Zip it, Guido.
I remember. What was it? Tell us. They took me. The Acolytes implanted that disgusting thing in me. Controlled my mind. They made me. Oh, please, you've got to forgive me. I didn't mean to bring you here, to betray you like this. I was programmed. I had to.
And was lying about Project Wide Awake part of the programming?
No, but...
I don't want to hear your lame excuses.
Alex, you didn't have the right to...
I have every right! Val, I'm truly sorry for what the Acolytes did to you. But in some ways, it's no different than what you've been doing to us all along.
You don't understand. Project Wide Awake is only in place as a failsafe. In case X Factor doesn't work. Pedro, you understand? I did what I had to do for national security. I was just following orders.
An unfortunate choice of phrase, Valerie. One that echoed again and again at Nuremberg, when the murderers of my father's people, of my people, sought expiation of their sins.
But you can't possibly compare this to... You, all of you, you're not just some hired underlings. You're my friends. You're my friends.
Some of my best friends are mutants. Ah, Valerie, how very typical of a flat scan.
On his satellite base in Earth orbit, known as Asteroid M by the humans and Avalon by mutants, Magneto looks over Xavier's past and present students on a monitor. Prologue. Somewhere in heaven, a shepherd sits alone, wondering which of his many sheep will make for the easiest fleecing. And he chides himself for having the thought, for he fully realizes that if he is to rule in paradise, he must shelter the flock, protect it, not lead it to the slaughter. Shall the children be first? Yes, since my own children seem unattainable, let us then invite his. If the children of the atom are willing to accept the truth, that the dream is dead, the dreamer a fool, then perhaps their kin will awaken, and finally, Charles Xavier's foolish quest for a holy grail will be over. Fatal Attractions, a celebration marking 30 years of excellence, featuring X-Force. Cannonball, Boomer, Feral, Warpath, Richter, Shatterstar, Siren, Sunspot. X-Force lands their jet on the plot of land they've set up their base on, returning from a mission where they rescued 2 of their comrades, but they remain brainwashed and comatose. Before they enter the base, though, they notice that someone has been there in their absence, and added sections onto the base according to plans Cannonball had made up. They divide into teams to search the compound. Warpath and Siren are taken down by an energy blast from their unseen foe. Richter and Sunspot fall victim to a gas grenade. Shatterstar and Feral are blinded by magnesium flares. But before the mystery assailant can find Cannonball, Sam finds him, rocket blasting into his back and punching him away. Now why don't you come out of the shadows, mister, so we can see who you... Oh, Lord. You? Cable rises, brandishing a large gun.
Who did you expect? I have to seriously question your strategy, Sam. You did exactly what I wanted. I mean, blasting me, of all people, into a weapons rack? That's like putting the wolf in charge of the henhouse.
Back to front. Cable has been missing in action for some time before this homecoming, and his team welcomed back their leader and founder. X-Force began when Cable took some of Xavier's students who had become disillusioned with his dream of peaceful integration, and desired a more proactive approach to combating the threat of evil mutants. They continue on that path with or without Cable at their side, but they're very glad to have him back. And Sam, Cannonball, is glad to have the weight of leading them in his absence lifted, a stress that Cable can now relate to him over.
I'm sorry, Sam, for everything I did to you, and for everything I didn't do for you. I tried hard to be a military leader, that I forgot where I came from. I forgot that soldiers fighting together are more than programmable machines. They're brothers in arms. They're a family. And I want to try to do right by you, son. By all of you.
Hey, you gave me a reason to go on living after my family was killed, Cable. As far as I'm concerned, you've done all right so far. Well, things are sure gonna be different around here with you back. I can never be the same again. But the road remains the same, and we all ride it together.
Then it's lucky for me I'm wearing a brand new pair of shock absorbers, just in case it gets bumpy.
The two brainwashed allies can't be helped by anything they have on hand in the base, but they can be kept stable and alive. If they could get to Cable's own satellite base, Greymalkin, he might have some future technology that could restore them to normal. And they do have a ship. But do they have the will, as things stand now? Sure, but not before we're sure we know what we're doing.
Still don't trust me, do you, Sam?
Give me a good enough reason to, sir.
You want some concrete answers from the horse's mouth, right, Sam? Fine, you deserve it. Here goes. My original name is Nathan Dayspring, delivered to the future by a woman named Uncanny, and raised to be the savior for the rebellion against the Canaanite rule of the external High Lord, whom you know in this timeline as Apocalypse. We lost the war in my future, Sam. So I returned to this timeline, which happens to be a focal point for all history which may happen, to ensure that madmen like Apocalypse would never have the opportunity again to create the kind of hell that my world has become. And you, Sam, were part of my plan. The hope I was going to develop a High Lord, taught and raised by the views of both Xavier and Magneto. The one person who, someday, in the future, can become mankind, and mutantkind, savior. Then a monkey wrench got thrown into the works. I never knew until recently that the Chaos Bringer, a worldwide fomenter of anarchy from my time known as Strife, had come back here as well, and was, apparently, my exact duplicate. I have my suspicions as to why that is, but until I know for sure, I think I'll keep that to myself. I never had the chance to verify what I believe after we were both sucked into the time stream. I escaped. Strife didn't. Which brings us to the here and now. How's that for straight talk?
Pretty good.
Well, you did ask. And there are still some answers I can't give you, Sam. Both because I can't reveal potential futures to you, but also because I have become a traveler so mired in the time stream that I'm not sure which future belongs to this particular timeline anymore.
Droga, how are you ever able to make any decisions then?
Do it day by day, DaCosta. Anyway, I've learned. The future is what you make it.
And what can you make of this one then, Cable?
Burp, burp. A perimeter alarm goes off.
Tell you what, Teresa, and just to prove my point of a second ago, I can only go so far as to predict that in our immediate future, someone is going to spit teeth on the desert sand.
X-Force rush to join the other members outside. Magneto's powerful new second-in-command, Exodus, appears before X-Force, but he doesn't want to fight, but to act as Magneto's emissary. X-Force aren't in the mood to hear his message, though, and prepare to attack. Exodus blasts him with energy to stop it. Cable and the others rush outside, and he halts their assault as well with a wave of energy. He states his intention. Exodus comes to offer Xavier's former students a place aboard Avalon and safety from the destruction Magneto will soon bring to the Earth. They insist their teammates also be allowed to come, including the brainwashed victims, and he agrees. Cable tries to warn him, but Sam is committed to this strategy. He and most of X-Force leave with Exodus in a huge whirlwind. Cable reveals that Sam just gave him a way to track them, and he leads those who remain inside. Cable and the others take their starship up to the Greymalkin satellite, only to find that Magneto has already taken it over and merged it with his own asteroid M to create his Avalon. Cable docks with the satellite, and they enter. The new mutants aboard the satellite listen to Magneto's proposal as Cable and the rest of X-Force make their way through the station.
I wish for you to stay, Sam. All of you, stay. As you ponder my offer, ask yourselves, though we are forever marked as children of the atom, are we still children of Charles Xavier's dream? And as your independence will attest, your reply must be no. Then follow that question with this. Is the path of this man called Cable the right one for mutants to follow? For I assure you, X-Force, it is not. I offer the only way, as I have from the beginning.
Exodus appears to block their way, and Cable blasts him, ordering the team to attack him and keep him busy while he finds the others with his teleporter. Feral and Shatterstar tear into Exodus, and he repels them with energy. Siren collapses the room on him, and Proudstar clobbers him with enormous force. Cable tells him he has a teleport lock on the others. Cable and the others appear by Cannonball's team.
Sam, come on, pack it up. You're out of here, now.
But what about you?
I'm going to try and retrieve the professor's sentient programming from the systems, and then I'm going to blow this place to pieces.
No.
No? What do you mean, no? Greymalkin is lost to me. It's become completely co-opted by the alien systems introduced into its central data net. And you know who's responsible, Sam. Do you honestly want him hovering over the planet like some mad god?
Magnus says this place is going to become a safe house for mutants, if that's what they want. He saved Rusty and Skids, and they've decided to stay here. They have every right to make their own choice, just like the rest of us do. We can continue to fight back home on Earth for what we believe in, but that doesn't mean everyone has to. The right to make our own choices, the right of self-determination, is the argument we used against Xavier to gain our own freedom. Who are we to tell others they don't have the same rights?
Sam, to think it was the two of you that got me into this moral quagmire to begin with. I never wanted to become a teacher again, or a father. Now look at the choices my students, my children, are forcing me to make. Computer, override access. Body slide by 8, IPAC bound. Disengage mooring locks. Set autopilot for return to origination coordinates.
No, Cable, we won't leave without you. The active members of X-Force leave on their starship as Cable heads deeper into the station.
Are they fleeing? No, the children have gone, but I sense the butcher of my master's hope remains aboard, needing still to seek out a mechanical soul, with which to replace those parts long lost to him.
Greymalkin's central core. Ironic, he thinks, that he's walking into a suicide mission in order to save a computer program, since years ago the same computer program risked its life to save him. But the irony only serves to drive him harder, to save the one thing Cable has had his entire life which even remotely fell under the definition of father. System datanet access.
Find programming core file, Professor.
Processing.
Come on. I'm a dead man, standing here, dead to rights, all for a stupid computer program.
Why, Nathan, I am not certain if I should be thanking you for your tenacity or chiding you for your insults.
Professor, you're still alive!
Other than a mild case of indigestion due to this alien programming in my system, I am online.
Well, I'm getting you out of there right now, and I'm going to try and find a way to activate the auto-destruct sequence. I believe allowing you to retrieve this small piece of your past was more than gracious of me. Surely you do not expect me to allow you to destroy my home as easily as you did my hope of bringing all of the children under my fold. For, given time, Cable, they would have seen the light. So, it is you, in full armor no less. Time is something I've seen plenty of, Magneto, and in all that time, I've only seen you fail. Time and time again, your way leads to oppression and bitterness, Magneto, and ends in death. Sam and the others would never have chosen to stay with you. And you believe you offer a better path? You don't get it, do you? They haven't chosen to follow my path anymore. I've chosen to follow theirs. And that's a road which you and I are barreling down from opposite directions, which means we're gearing up for a head-on collision.
Cable charges at him, guns blazing. Magneto easily repels him.
You are a small-minded fool, Nathan Dayspring. We could have simply passed each other by on the road, acknowledging our different ways, yet wishing the other safe journey, since our goals, the salvation of mutantkind, remain the same. Yet you have chosen to turn this into a battle, which, since half of you is made of metal, and I am the overlord of the fatal attraction, makes your decision utterly devoid of reason. Sam and the others should have been mine, man of tomorrow.
Eric punches Cable.
They could have helped me build a glorious home for our people.
He is tossed to and fro in Eric's magnetic grip.
And they were mine once, mine to meld and form, but that is lost. But what I find most galling of all, Cable, is that in your arrogance, your ego, and in your outright stupidity, you would choose to throw away all that those children have to offer you, by allowing yourself to be killed at my hands.
Magneto tears apart the half of Cable's body that has been infected with a technovirus, pulling circuits free from beneath the burst metal plates.
Why does your own lack of faith cause you to make the same mistakes over and over again? Odd that I should be asking you that. Look at the vicious cycle I have placed myself in. But you chose the name Cable for all it implies. A link between then and now. Between the desire for a better world and the need to fight for it. And now look at you. Lost. Adrift. And finally, literally and figuratively, a man out of time. Professor.
I am inside of you, Nathan. Barely.
You still live? Why would a man who is so much artifice desperately cling to life? Because I'm not a machine. I am a man. A man who just beat you. Because X-Force is mine, Magnus. And you've lost him for good. Body slide by one. I pack bound.
Barely able to function, Cable issues the command and teleports away onto X-Force's ship.
You run away for now, Cable. And for the sake of Sam and the others, I will allow it. But the day will come when you will not be able to hide from your past or your future. The day will come soon.
Oh, my lord! Is he alive? We better prep the medical lab on touchdown, but I'm not sure what's going to make a difference.
Greymalkin didn't detonate? Has Cable failed?
That would depend on your definition of failure, Roberto.
Professor, you're alive? Excellent!
Magnus retains the use of the station, but Nathan successfully removed my programming from the central core, while still also managing to maintain the override on the station's interplanetary teleportational systems. From a personal, and albeit selfish standpoint, I would call Nathan's endeavors an overwhelming success.
Is that good enough for you, Costa? Better than that, Cable. You came back with your heart and soul and left your material possessions behind. If anything, you have shown me that you have changed. You have chosen life over death, blood over metal, and you have restored our hope in a battered but unbroken dream.
He was not nearly the challenge we expected, my lord. Really, Exodus? I thought he was a far greater threat than I had anticipated. This was not a physical combat, my friends, but a philosophical one, and ultimately, by robbing me of the chance to forge the minds of the next generation of mutants, it is a battle which Cable has won. For now, we'd best turn our attentions towards Xavier's brood, offer them haven, and see how they will respond. As for Cable and his X-Force unit, well, ironically enough, there is always tomorrow, isn't there? Exodus disciplines Fabian Cortez for betraying Magneto in order to take control of the Acolytes, and his new second-in-command takes the place of his previous one. His punishment is to suffer the same end as Illyana, death from the legacy virus, and Exodus leaves him smashed and broken, as ordered. It has only happened twice before in his life that Charles Xavier has not recognized a reflection in the mirror. The first was on the afternoon he realized, with startling certainty, he was different from anyone else he'd ever known. Long before he'd ever heard the word mutant, it was painfully clear his incredible mind set him apart from those around him. Alone in the crowd. The second time was when he woke on a windswept morning in far-off Tibet, and realized he would never walk again. While the face was the same, he felt, for a time, that he was somehow less than a person for his handicap. Finally, on this morning, it is another emotion that has twisted and contorted his features, both inside and out. For on this morning, he has to bury Illyana Rasputin, an innocent child who trusted him. On this day, his is a face marred by failure.
Dear God, Charles, what were you thinking? Each and every one of my X-Men had a life before me, before I convinced them, in some cases, to abandon their lives, their families, to give up everything they held dear so they might risk those lives to fight for a world that fears and hates us. Now, with the blood of an innocent on my hands, how do I face them? What do I have to offer, greater than anything I've taken away?
An alien woman appears to him in a hologram.
As always, Charles, now and forever, you have your dream. Greetings, my love. Your pain, your devastation has reached across the galaxy to embrace my soul in a grip of ice. And while my responsibilities to the Shi'ar Empire demand my presence, please allow this holographic image to offer what little solace space and distance might allow.
Lilandra.
Majestrix Lilandra of the House of Naramani, sovereign of the vast Shi'ar Empire, and the one true love of Charles Xavier's life.
Lilandra, I'm afraid I fall far short of being worthy of your kindness.
Please, Charles, tell me, what happened?
I've lost one of my own, one of my children of the atom. Unlike Thunderbird or Cypher, Warlock, Illyana was a child who had every right to believe in me, and I failed her.
While I do not know the specifics, my love, I do know you could not possibly have failed her here, in your heart. I know Charles Francis Xavier well enough to know that you did everything you could. And in the end, that is all any one of us can ever do. I'm afraid the technicians cannot maintain this transmission any longer. Wanted you to know that whatever you're experiencing, you're not going through it alone.
Her image fades.
Not alone, Lilandra. I have been alone since the day I realized I was different, and that my mutation meant I had a responsibility. I possessed a power which allowed me unhampered access to any mind on the planet, their hopes and fears, their pain and sorrows, their secrets and their lies. In order to maintain my sanity, I had to shut down, close off, a large portion of my mind, not unlike cutting off an arm to save the entire body. No, my love, I will always be alone. Even those whom I ally myself with, both human and mutant, often do so from a distance. My mutant underground consists of people who understand there are dangers which transcend racial boundaries.
On his computer, Charles accesses the Magneto protocols.
People who depend on me not to allow this inevitable confrontation to end like every other. People who I will not fail.
A long time ago, one might argue a lifetime ago, this Westchester estate near the hamlet of Salem Center lived up to its name as Professor Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, a relatively normal estate on a nondescript country road. It has served as a training ground for young people possessed of mutagenic abilities. But more than that, it was their home, a safe haven from the world around them. Then a funny thing happened. The world started to change. Their enemies, no longer content to simply dominate mutants, opted instead to kill. Their adversaries, who once thought it was enough to tolerate humanity, decided it was necessary, even desirable, to destroy it instead. Where once a threat to world genetic harmony came from identifiable sources, now the danger is everywhere. Today, for example, the greatest threat to face every living being on the planet Earth does not currently reside on this planet at all. High above the Earth, aboard Avalon.
My apologies, children, for I am afraid I cannot save you all. In my youth, I believed I could rescue each of you from the arrogance, the ignorance, the sheer cruelty that others call humanity. I was convinced that physical strength, moral, would be enough. I was wrong. I realize now that Earth, for the moment, is doomed, and that if mutants are to survive as they must, then our future lies here, among the stars. Here, where we might lay claim to our own corner of heaven. Here, in Avalon.
There was a time when this man would have scoffed at the thought of talking to himself. But that, too, has changed. It may have changed on the night he died on a flaming asteroid as it plunged into Earth's atmosphere, when the acolyte called Chrome transmuted this man's critically wounded body into omnium, ensuring he'd survive the fiery crash to Earth. His benefactor died so that he may live. But far more likely, it all changed on the night, decades earlier, when he lost the one great love of his life. The only thing he ever truly created in a life that has, since, it seems, been about nothing more than death and destruction. True, it is destruction in the same way a blank canvas is scarred by a swath of paint, but it is destruction nonetheless. That much, at least, his need to destroy in order to create, for better or for worse, has not changed.
I don't want to do this, Charles. Rather, I have to. I must be strong, because you and your X-Men are too weak to do that which must be done. For this reason, above all others, have I been spared from the sweet surrender that is oblivion, the cold embrace that is death, again and time again. For no matter what happens to you and me, the welfare of the children is paramount. Whether they be the innocent, like Doug and Anya before them, the lost, such as my acolytes, or the misguided, like the fools you count among the X-Men. They need to be protected. They need to be awakened from the dream in which you've lulled them. Whether you admit it or not, they need Magneto.
Though the words echo off the empty walls of Avalon, the thoughts they convey, the very emotions, can be felt as far away as the earth below. For while neither man would admit it, Professor Xavier and Magneto are two sides to the same coin. Two men convinced their way is mutantkind's only hope. Storm and Kitty Pryde reminisce as they fly above the mansion. Kitty sees Colossus burning his paintings in the yard, and they fly down.
What? Peter, no! What are you doing?
I would think, Katya, the answer is obvious. I am getting on with my life. Rather, what passes for a life without my sister, my brother, my parents.
How? By physically destroying your past? By trying to erase that part of you that can still create? That can capture hearts and souls on a canvas? Do you really believe it's that easy?
No, Katya. I do not believe anything is easy anymore. But if you feel that strongly about this work, take it.
If I feel that strongly, what about you, Peter? You've barely spoken a word since Illyana died. What are you feeling?
Nothing.
Oh, Peter, if you need me for anything, I'll be...
Kitty takes the painting and runs away in tears. 1 hour later, as the noon sun shines high overhead.
To believe that Illyana is looking down upon this assemblage of her friends and family, and is elated to see you all here, draped in the colors worn in the defense of a dream, in which she was engaged for almost half her life. A life that, while tragically short, was filled to overflowing with enough contradictions to fill several lives. A life in a constant state of turmoil, burdened by demons not of her own making, she remained an angel at her core. Frightened by the darkness which had, for a time, gripped her soul, she was brave enough to stoke the embers of light that smoldered in her heart, awaiting, against great odds, to blaze bright once more. And blaze it did, my fellow X-Men, for Illyana triumphed against the dark, and innocence returned, however briefly. So too must we learn from her example, my friends. She taught us to cling to life with both hands, to wrest what happiness we can from each and every moment of our lives. If we can take her lessons to heart, Illyana will never truly die. She will have won her battle. She will live within every one of us until we breathe our last.
Amen. And with those final words, they'd like to believe the services have concluded, that the healing can begin, unaware that high above, and closing fast, the end is upon them. Kitty and Sam hug as the members of X-Force mingle with the X-Men.
Oh, Sam.
I know, Kitty. We've been through this before, but it don't get any easier, does it?
I do not understand why we indulge in this masochistic mourning process, when we should be addressing the recent assault on Cable.
Don't look at me, Shatterstar. Maybe Sammy doesn't think it's any of the X-Men's business.
Or maybe he's been distracted, Feral. Losing a friend can do that to you. Now, tell me, who exactly was responsible for this attack on X-Force's leader? And why do I get the feeling I'm not going to like the answer? Peter, a moment, son. I just want you to know how terribly sorry I am. Are you, sir? Why do I doubt that? Is it because I had trouble believing anything you say? When you asked me to leave the Ust-Ordonsky Collective, you said, and I remember the words as if you said them only yesterday, "Power such as yours belongs to the world, Peter, to be used for the good of all." Roro, I think something's brewing. On nothing more than your word, I left my family, my life, and didn't look back. I thrilled to those words, Professor. They made me part of a larger whole. Never once did I falter, did I question the validity, the cost of your dream. No, God-spoken Xavier, I did not fail you. You and your dream failed me. Worse, it failed Illyana. And for that, I will never forgive you. Peter, hold on, you're absolutely right, son. How fortuitous for everyone that I have chosen this moment to return. Magneto appears, filling the sky with bolts of crackling energy. For it is obvious that at least some of you now understand what I have known for years. If mutants, as a race, are to survive, we must stop concerning ourselves with the acceptance of humans, and instead concentrate on the threats facing Homo superiors. Magneto? Then what we feared was true. You're alive. How observant, Cyclops. No, I obviously did not die during the fall of asteroid M. Thanks to you, X-Men, I was critically wounded, and would surely have gone the way of all flesh, if not for one of my acolytes, who sacrificed himself for me. I spent months tending to my wounds, content to sit back and watch as the genetic factions of the planet tore each other apart. Strife, Apocalypse, Mr. Sinister, the Upstarts, the Dark Riders, the most recent incarnation of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. And you, X-Men, X-Force, X-Factor, responding in ever more desperate kind. How fractured your dream has become, Charles. It provided me with hours of amusement as I awaited the moment of my return, intent as I was to wade through the bodies of the mutant civil war and take my place as leader of the survivors. As it is, unexpected developments necessitated I take a more active role as savior to my genetic brethren.
Crashing a funeral, Magster? Trey, tacky. Robert is right. Have you become so intimate with the concept of death that you no longer respect the passing of others?
On the contrary, Storm, I am here because of my respect for those who have gone before me, and to prevent others from sharing their fate.
Magneto destroys 2 cars to emphasize his point.
I am here to offer each of you sanctuary from the coming firestorm of death that will soon rage across this planet. I've returned to offer you an alternative to the genocide of our people. I'm here to offer you salvation.
The acolytes appear on the ground below him.
Believe him, scion of Xavier, just as we who have come together from the 4 corners of the world have accepted that Magnus is our only hope.
He lives! Magneto lives, just as Exodus claimed!
Praise be to Magneto, his word is our law.
The acolytes! Jean, how did they...
Possibly get this close? Magneto must somehow be using his electromagnetic powers to jam my psionic powers.
It is but one of the arsenal of powers that are my father's to command, Cyclops.
But never before to this degree, Pietro.
Well, don't go getting too excited, kids. He ain't gonna be staying for long.
Wolverine pops his claws. Shh. Stay calm, Wolverine. Until we know what we're up against, you're the drop-dead last person I want slugging it out with Magneto. You would do well to heed Scott's advice, Logan. My near discorporation within Earth's EM field has left me more powerful than even I imagined. Magneto stops Wolverine with a wave of his hand.
Ah! Forced my claws to retract?
Magneto! Eric, please! There's no need for this!
I am needed, Xavier, to lead our people to a better world. We need to travel from this place of death and decay, and can no longer be hampered by the conventions of man. Any more than I can allow you and your pathetic kindred spirits to handicap my efforts to save you despite yourselves.
He pulls apart the metal of Xavier's wheelchair.
Storm, ma'am, I can't move. He is magnetically gripping the iron fibers in our blood, Samuel. While we are still possessed of our abilities, we have no way of consciously accessing them.
And if those powers are involuntary, there is no need for you to attack, X-Men, for I did not come to engage you in battle. Rather, I have come to help you, to help all mutants. But in order to do this, I must demand total loyalty from those who count themselves among my followers. Senyaka, isn't it? Yes, my lord. Words cannot express the joy which swells my heart to overflowing seeing you still walk in our midst. I only hope you will continue to allow me to serve you, as I have in your absence. You did much more than serve, Acolyte. You engaged in the genetic cleansing of dozens of innocent people. Sick and dying humans who were of no threat to anyone. And these acts were committed in your name, Father. You were ultimately responsible for the heinous crimes. Crimes, my son? Is it a crime to put an animal out of its misery? What you witnessed was the tossing of the gauntlet, the first sign of mutants taking the initiative to free themselves from the humans' oppression at last. Had I not been in the Antarctic, gathering my strength, renewing myself in body and soul, I would have given my acolytes my blessing.
Magneto lifts Senyaka into the air.
But I did not. And while your zeal is admirable, Senyaka, order must ever be maintained. When the rivers of this planet roar with the blood of humans, when the earth opens to swallow whole all those who oppose me, all this will be done on my word and mine alone. The word of Magneto.
He wraps him in his own cables and crushes the life from his acolyte as punishment.
Lieber Gott, Magneto has bought into his role as savior. In the parlance of the land, he has been reading his own press releases.
This is a man who death cannot stop, Kurt. Is it any wonder he believes he is the god his followers profess him to be?
Ugh. He, pulped the guy with his own coils. We're talking 4-star grossness.
Do not weep for this pathetic man, for I have not slain him. Rather, he has been liberated from the enslavement that was his life. Trust one who has died and risen again. Death has a way of putting everything into perspective. Allow me to share what I have learned. Know you all. The time for games, for choosing sides, for debating the alleged morality of our actions, for questioning my ultimate authority, has passed. From this day, all those who do not stand with me, whether mutant or not, can be counted among my enemies. Those who are not willing, who cannot find the steel in their souls to join me in the sanctuary I constructed high above the earth, sentence themselves to wallow in the mass grave that is the destiny of this planet. Behold now, salvation. Behold now, Avalon.
It can be seen as far away as New York City, an immense structure built of a technology not yet seen on this planet, comes silently down from the stars. Its shadow alone throws several million people into preternatural darkness. Its effect, however, can be felt to the very farthest reaches of the globe. The havoc caused by the Leviathan that is Avalon's sudden presence, the violation of Earth's electromagnetic field, will mar the landscape, will ravage the citizenry of the planet for weeks to come. As the intended future home to all mutants tears and shreds its way through the atmosphere, savage whipping winds shriek across the eastern seaboard. Tides lash at the coastline with the fury of a rampaging hurricane. But far worse than the physical damage is the horror inflicted upon an innocent populace. For at this moment, what has long been suspected can no longer be denied. Magneto has returned. And no human being will truly feel safe again.
It's not a haven. It's a fortress. Laden down with Shi'ar weaponry he could only have appropriated during his time with the X-Men.
I can see now that at last you understand, don't you, Charles? You realize I am no longer the preening, fawning man I was when my mind was altered by your beloved Moira MacTaggart. I refuse to ever again become an apologist, a nursemaid to the next generation of mutants foolish enough to opt to become your X-Men. Instead, I stand before you as the man I have always been, the future ruler of a world dominated by Homo Superior. Come with me, Charles. Come with me to Avalon, as we await for the land to be purged of that plague created by another of our kind. Come and witness, from a distance, the final, gasping breath of humanity, of the great unwashed, as it makes way for the destiny that cannot be denied. Exodus, begin now the ascension. Observe, Charles, as I take these from you.
Exodus and several mutants lift into the air towards the satellite.
An almost dozen mutants, free from the bonds of the perverse altruism in which you'd seek to entomb them. Not long ago, Xavier, I tried your path. Now I ask you, my oldest friend, do you have the courage to do what I had done? Are you willing to walk down my path for a time?
Do you truly believe you are attempting anything original, Magnus? Don't you realize there is little difference between you and the same monster responsible for the death of your parents and sister? Can't you see you've become what you hated most in others?
Do not dare compare me to any human, Charles. I seek to rescue our people. And if others must suffer because of that, I am not responsible.
Energy sparks from Bishop's eyes.
Bishop, what's happening?
What's with the walking light bright?
My mutant ability does not include an off switch, Robert. I automatically absorb any energy directed at me, channeling it through me. Any energy, including, apparently, Magneto's. We both know mutants are not long for this world. While recovering, I too learned of Stripe's legacy.
I have borne silent witness to the passing of all who have fallen for no other reason than they are of mutant blood. I have wept for those who have died, and with those tears an unspeakable, unshakable truth was revealed to me. And I know that in your heart you share the knowledge that unless we, as a race, take action this moment, Illyana will be but the first of scores of innocent victims to die.
Colossus grimaces at the mention of his sister's name. He senses an electromagnetic rupture the instant before it happens.
Eh?
As a living storage cell, even I have my limits. All the time you kept me immobile, you were providing me with the very energy I needed to free myself. Energy I'm returning to you, in kind. Bishop unleashes his energy back at Magneto, hurling him far away and into a church. Stand down, people. Bishop's actions may have cut us loose, but...
In your one eye, ya...
Cyclops has a point, gentlemen. The closer we get, the more likely Magneto will once again assert himself upon our bodily functions.
Near as I know, that's illegal in most states.
Prof, can you promise me we're gonna live through this? I mean, we're talking the big M here.
I can promise it will not be for lack of trying, child. Cyclops recharges Bishop with his optic blast. I hate to do this, Bishop, but that Avalon is filled with fanatics and armed to the teeth with enough weapons to reduce New York to a cinder.
Indeed. Do what you must.
Magneto explodes out of the rubble, returning to face the X-Men.
This is how you repay the courtesy I've extended to you? Have you all become so blind to the hatred in the eyes of the humans? Have you become so deaf that you cannot hear the plaintive plea of your brethren crying for salvation? This world is no longer safe for mutants, while Stripe's legacy could strike any of us at any moment. Do these genetic dead ends, these humans who live in righteous fear of our genetic birthright, mean so much to you that you are willing to forfeit your own lives to save theirs? For make no mistake, X-Men, all those who refuse to join me die here and now with these worthless herds of human cattle grazing upon a land that is rightfully ours.
The X-Men busily pour all their various forms of energy into Bishop.
Bishop, are you certain you're up to this?
What is your limit regarding the number of energy signatures you can absorb at one time?
Afraid Havoc have to find out together.
Then we better hurry and take down the big M. 'Cause judging by the way home base there is glowing, he's about to turn all of Westchester County into one big warmed-over burrito.
Actually, it will be nothing more than a smoldering crater, a testament to the world that for every life claimed by Stripe's legacy, I will take 10,000 humans as penance.
Rogue flies up to meet him.
Magneto, listen to yourself. Stripe was a mutant, same as us. You can't blame humanity for his disease.
Can't I, Rogue? It is that very humanity which is all that stands between mutants and our divine right to live as we please. None of the mutant factions would be fighting amongst ourselves, if not for the fact we must defend our very existence from those who would see us dead. Stripe was merely the finger upon a trigger loaded and aimed at mutantkind.
I'm sorry I have to do this, sugar. But near as I can tell, it may be the only way to kiss some sense into you.
She kisses him, absorbing Magneto's power through the only exposed area he has.
What happened? I was supposed to absorb your power.
You did, after a fashion. You actually managed to steal a bit. The difference being, it was not enough. As the lingering memories that float unbidden through your mind, at least for the moment, should reveal to you, I am no longer the man I was. I am stronger than I have ever been, ever have imagined I would one day become. Steal half my power, and I still have more than enough to eliminate anyone who seeks to stop me from doing what I must to save my people. But thank you for the kiss. nonetheless.
He hurls her into Beast.
It served as the briefest, the sweetest reminder of what might have been, what may yet be, if any of you would all accept the truth. If you would at last see the world the way it is, rather than that which you would so desperately like it to become.
Eric rips a fence free and wraps several X-Men in its iron bars.
Until then, you are all bound by your own archaic moral code of peaceful coexistence between humans and mutants. Until then, you are restrained by your confused belief that all your hard work, all your sacrifice, will make a bit of difference.
Do not worry about us, Magneto, for the truth has set us free long ago.
And at the heart of that truth lies a bitter irony.
Bishop unloads his stored energy on him.
For you and Professor Xavier, and by extension all who wear the colors of the X-Men, are all fighting for the same cause. It is only the methods we've chosen to adopt, it appears, that will separate us from your acolytes forever. It will be far shorter than forever, child. For within the hour there will be no X-Men, no humans to protect. There will be only a mass grave for which only a world of walking corpses shall mourn. Lofty ambitions, sir, though I'm afraid we're not without our own game plan.
Gambit, Sunspot, and Iceman add their powers to the attack, bringing Magneto to his knees.
It's called surviving, Magneto. It's what we do.
We're in a double bind here, people. Magneto is holding his base together by sheer force of will. The greater the strain he is placed under, the more the integrity of this structure suffers.
Jean and Storm use their powers to hold the station together and in the air.
If it crashes, if we can't keep it together, the devastation will be unthinkable. Yet, if we do not take the risk, if we do not stop Magneto, and do not dismantle this orbiting fortress, how many more lives will be lost, if we do not end it, here and now?
Colossus approaches Bishop and Magneto, still struggling together.
Perhaps we owe it to those people, to ourselves, to find an alternative to that fate.
He punches Bishop in the back, betraying the X-Men and interrupting his assault.
I've known this man for years, and witnessed the countless indignities heaped upon him. Have been privy to every agonizing step of his struggle. A struggle which, as you pointed out, is similar to our own, in content, if not in execution. Much like the Professor, his commitment to his goal has never faltered. Perhaps, had I had the strength of conviction to join him earlier, fought more aggressively for the rights of mutants, I would not be here at the grave of my sister. What I'm saying, Magneto, is that if you will have me, I would like to join you in your chosen plight. There is nothing left for me here.
He helps Magneto to his feet.
There is nothing left here for any of us. Welcome to the fold, Peter. Welcome to the future.
Dear God, Peter, no!
Tell me somebody's controlling his mind.
For the first time in months, Logan, I feel I am in control.
Take your place among the others, Colossus. I will join you shortly.
Eric sends Colossus to the satellite.
I am glad you were alive to witness this final humiliation, Charles. Perhaps, before you die, you will realize what I have always known. That the weak have virtually no chance of ever inheriting the Earth.
Weakness, Eric, has always been a matter of perspective.
For all your talk of ruling the world, you've lost sight of the reality that it is the world that has always ruled you. In your youth, it took away the family in which you were born. As a man, it robbed you of the family you created. You could have been a force for good in this world. And as your friend, maybe the only friend you've ever allowed inside your heart, I can attest to the inherent goodness of the man you once were. But you lacked courage, Eric. The fortitude to rise above the challenges life set you. Instead, you became the angry, bitter man I see before me.
Charles unleashes a powerful psychic attack on Magneto.
Ah! Don't you presume to pity me, Charles Xavier!
Sir, you've got to act quickly! Jean can't hold that vessel together much longer!
Then it is clear I will have to help her by using my mental powers to commandeer Magneto's own.
Though he realizes the resulting bioelectric feedback is agonizing to his students, Xavier also knows he has no choice if he is to save his charges, as well as all those people threatened by Avalon's presence. Charles crawls to Magneto.
There are those who consider us among the strongest mutants on the face of the planet, but we both know better than that, don't we? For you and I both started at the same point in our lives. Both believed we could make a difference in the lives of those around us. Do you remember what happened then, Eric? Do you recall how one of us kept the promise we'd made to the other?
He hauls himself up by his cape.
The promise that our dream would survive. Only one of us was true to our word. For years I convinced myself you were to blame for your actions. Each confrontation I hoped would be our last, because I was sure you would come to your senses. I had to believe in you in order that I could believe in the dream to which we dedicated our lives. Then you've wasted your time, Charles, for the man who made that promise, the man who shared your hopes of a better world, hasn't existed in years, if he ever existed at all. I refuse to accept that.
The two men rise into the air.
Just as I refuse to allow you to continue venting your anger, your grief, your disillusionment on the weak and defenseless people of the world. If you will not take responsibility for yourself, Magneto, then God help me, I will.
Commandeering Magneto's powers with his own, these two men rise above the Earth with Avalon in their psionic thrall, a genetic Cain and Abel, locked forever in an eternal conflict as old as the forces of good and evil. And whereas Magnus was often given to displaying the full range of his powers, Professor Charles Xavier was always less inclined. Until this moment.
Forgive me for what I am about to do.
And with that, Xavier magnetically hurls Avalon into space, lacking the courage, the resolve, to take the life of the man who he knows will certainly return, and once more threaten the entire world. Xavier falls toward the Earth alone. For a fraction of a moment, he'd like to believe it is all over. The struggle, the conflict, the motivation to continue a fight that is his, and much more than his. But he knows better. Archangel catches him.
Shh! I'm here, Charles.
Of course you are, Warren.
I'd expect nothing less from any of my X-Men.
In the White House, the President and Nick Fury confer, and with United Nations clearance, they institute the Magneto Protocols. Near Earth's space, in the shadow of the Terminator racing from day to night, a communications relay trips from one meticulously aligned satellite to another. Systems which had remained silent for several years fire to life, linking one floating sentry to the next, until the entire planet is covered in a protective mesh of electromagnetic fire. The defensive actions taken by the citizens of the planet below do not go unnoticed by one who has placed himself so far above them, both by accident of birth and by dint of carefully crafted design.
I warned them not to do this. Why do they seek to provoke me? What will it take for them to leave us alone so we may forge our own utopia, removed from their petty, pathetic lives? The Master of Magnetism has taken notice, and Magneto is angry. My acolytes, I did not grant you safe haven here in Avalon in order to see you all slaughtered by the humans below. This attack cannot be ignored. For too long I have played a fruitless tete-a-tete with those humans in positions of power. I had always hoped that, as administrations came and went, as figureheads changed, one day, eventually, those who believed in the rights of mutants to exist free from persecution would attain power. It was, I know, a foolish hope. born out of my desire to never become that which I despised in my younger days. A despot, a tyrant, a Hitler. Yet there must come a time when even deaf ears must be made to listen, Lord Magnus. You are correct, Exodus. Indeed, that time has come and gone long before we even sought refuge here among the heavens.
Magneto pulls a curtain of air around himself before going outside.
It is time, then, for my actions to speak far more loudly than my words ever have.
He leaves their haven, Avalon, built from the technologies of worlds long gone and those still to come, and soars across the planet's electromagnetic field, disturbed by the eerie disruption caused by the energy wavelength mesh spanning the world below. Immediately, he understands what the humans have done. The mesh has skewed the planet's EM field just enough to disrupt Magneto's mutant abilities within the parameters of Earth's atmosphere. He is safe here, far above the planet, but to go home again could very well mean death. In many ways, he admires and appreciates the inventiveness of the human's gambit. But ultimately, it is an affront he cannot abide, for it will disrupt his ability to recruit new converts to his flock. So Magneto concentrates, muttering a silent prayer to a god he no longer believes in, and cuts a swath across Earth's electromagnetic field like a battle-forged blade through soft flesh. In New York, 10 seconds after detonation, the power goes out across the entire city, including Reed Richards' laboratory in the Baxter Building. In California, 2 minutes after detonation, cars on bridges are flung into the air. In Japan, 5 minutes after detonation, a shockwave crosses the city of Tokyo. In Russia, 6 minutes after detonation, the shockwave reaches them. And in England, 8 minutes after detonation, the power goes out at Excalibur's mansion. Across the Atlantic, 11 minutes after detonation, the wave comes full circle and the entire planet's electrical power systems are down. 13 minutes after detonation, the Xavier mansion's generators bring their power back on. Ah, there you go, Hank.
Wunderbar! We're back online. But methinks the telltale hush across the board declares, through incessant static crackle, that we may be the only ones anywhere who have regained electronic capabilities.
I'm afraid you may be right, Boyle. This is really bad. Let's be on with it. We'd best tell Charles.
Dreams fade. I have called you all here because there is something I must tell you.
It begins with an ending, and perhaps the breaking of a man's heart. This man's heart. The heart of Charles Xavier, as he faces his students, new and old, from his school for gifted youngsters. Among one old friend stand 14 mutants born with fantastic powers that set them apart from the rest of humanity. They are the X-Men, and once again, they must save a world which fears and shuns them. Dedicated to Stan and Jack, Roy and Neil, Len and Dave, Chris and John, to all those who have come before us, and all those who will come in the next 30 years. Hey, that's us.
Obviously, my X-Men, we have a problem. Scott will brief you all.
Thank you, Professor. Okay, guys, here goes. At 10:33 this morning, Eastern Standard Time, the United States Security Council voted to initiate the preliminary levels of defense in the Magneto protocols. The alpha and beta options of the protocols involve the activating of a defensive shield which spreads across the planet, and prevents Magneto from using his power within the boundaries of Earth's atmosphere. This is intended to protect humanity without the appearance of intended provocation.
Work like a charm, hey Cyclops?
At 11:55 p.m., an electromagnetic explosion sent a pulse wave across the planet. In retaliating, Magneto has effectively rendered the mechanical and technological resources of this entire planet completely useless. We believe this is a temporary condition, but even so, our scattered information leads us to expect that the pulse wave was terrifyingly devastating in its ferocity.
Scott, how bad was it?
We can't really know for certain, Rogue. We're only online because we have the advantage of the alien Shi'ar technology incorporated into our systems, which allows us to operate independently of the planet's EM field wavelength. From the garbled static we have been able to piece together, we know it's bad. Really bad. Plane crashes, medical equipment failure.
We fear many hundreds, perhaps thousands, have died.
Lord, this is insane. Why didn't he warn us or something?
Magnus would claim his entire life has been a warning. This was a vicious attack, meant to wound, to devastate.
But if Magneto was able to do this, don't you think he could have just easily wiped us all out?
Indeed. I know how difficult this is for you, how you feel about Magnus. But the fact that he did not kill us all should be viewed as a mistake on his part. And we have to make certain it is the last mistake he has the opportunity to make.
What are you saying, Chuck?
You know exactly what I am saying, Logan. We do not have the luxury of time, nor the occasion for nobility. At this point we are not fighting for the philosophy of a cause, a hope, or a dream. We are fighting for our very survival, and if we do not fight to win, this planet will be irrevocably lost to us.
Xavier's words hang heavily as the X-Men disperse and prepare for their mission. But 3 of his original students, who were all so young and innocent when they first came to live here, have come to a consensus about the retaliatory strike their teacher has planned. Guys, I don't like this one bit. Is it because, fearless leader, you consider it a plan which is strategically unsound, or because you weren't included in it? Neither, Hank. Or maybe both. I just don't like the sound of what the professor has planned.
He's under a lot of strain, Scott, and I'm going with them. I won't allow anything to happen, or be a party to something which goes against everything we believe.
I know, Jean, but those beliefs seem so, I don't know, outmoded lately.
Do they, Scott? A little corny, maybe. Always strive to heal through the open hand, rather than hammer home solutions through the closed fist.
Show the world that only through respect for our genetic diversity can we hope to come together. Be willing to fight for the beliefs against those, both human and mutant, who would try to crush the dream. Maybe they don't sound so outmoded after all.
Did it ever occur to any of you in all the years we've been together that perhaps I was wrong?
Charles, you're walking?
Only, I assure you, through tremendous exertion. The Shi'ar exoskeleton operates on psionic energy, so every step I take is a giant leap for mutant kind.
Cute. But, Professor, what exactly do you think you are doing? I am going to lead the strike force against Magnus, Hank.
Charles, I don't know where you've been hiding that exoskeleton, but even with it, well, that is...
What Jean is trying to say, sir, is that even with the ability to walk, you've never really been much of a battlefield operative.
I would take great insult at that, Scott, if I didn't agree with you, which is why I structured the assault team as a combination of skills and attributes. Wolverine and Gambit, combining the best elements of stealth, subterfuge, and guile to infiltrate Magneto's base. Jean Grey and Xavier, with telepathic prowess to attack him at his weakest point, his tortured soul. Quicksilver and Rogue, as well as speed, strength, and the strong desire to settle unresolved emotional conflicts. And since you'll be inside a space station, we high-octane energy wielders don't come in too handy. But what about some of the others? Why not include more of your original students who have fought this battle with Magneto almost as long as you? Because you don't expect to come back, do you, Charles? And you need us down here to stay, to carry on? If I had a choice, Scott, Jean would stay also. But with all of the mental energy I am expending to operate this exoskeleton, I'll need her telepathic abilities to assist me as we execute my plans. And what exactly is your plan, sir? Yes, it is time. You deserve to know. Computer, boot up Magneto maneuver number 14-8, amended August 92. Oh, my stars and garters! He does mean to put an end to this cycle of violence once and for all. He keeps telling himself that, in essence, it's just another job. Remy LeBeau is a thief at heart, and if rationalized properly, this is nothing more than a noble pinch. It just seems that the longer he stays with these people, the more he believes in their cause,
the harder it gets to simply rationalize the job. The truth of the matter is that, as Gambit well knows, he is fighting for the hope of an entire planet. And more importantly than ever to him, he is also fighting for the heart of the woman he loves.
Ready, Cher?
I guess.
I know Magneto saved your life, Rogue, and even though I don't know what else went on between you two, we still gotta do this. You know we do.
I'm just afraid, Remy, when push comes to shove, whose side am I going to be on?
The side you always try to be on. The right side.
Charles, the rest of us have been discussing this, and...
We feel that you are taking an unnecessary risk, as well as placing the X-Men in an extremely hazardous position by going to battle Magneto with such a small contingent.
You took the words right out of her mouth.
If you consider suicide the only option left to you in this struggle, I would respect your decision, although in no way would I agree to it. But to ask it of the others, and not to ask it of us all.
For my entire life I have fought for the sake of a dream, Aurora, and Magnus is the cause of what I believe is a nightmare. But what happens when the dream becomes the nightmare? At our last parting, one I had thought and fervently hoped would be our final one, Magnus said my will would break as I came to realize my quest to be a fool's hope. He was wrong. I have not been broken, but I have been hardened, as have some of you. I cannot allow that to continue. Dreams fade. Dreamers come and go. But the hope which fuels the fires of our passion, our goal, must not die out. And I, for one, am not about to let it. All right then, enough with the speeches. I'm afraid I've embarrassed myself. My X-Men, it is time. Computer, activate Shiar's secondary command programming link. Operation Naramani Omega. Commence Avalon Systems override sequence Z101000. Avalon Systems access defensive scrambling grid override teleportation sequence activated. The strike team teleports away. Come, why are you holding back? Why are you pitying in vain? Why is it that you do not hate a god whom the gods hate most of all? Why is it that you do not betray him, since it was your honor he betrayed to men? Our kinship has strange power, that and our life together. Shakespeare? Achilles, Prometheus Unbound. Greek tragedies, Hank? Unfortunately, it would seem apropos, Slim. The gates of heaven open, unable to prevent the serpents from entering into its hallowed halls, which rings rather ironic considering that this supposed paradise is presided over by a man haunted by the devils of his own scarred life, and those now rising from the hell that earth has become, come as dark angels, seeking to cleanse, to redeem.
We're in. Coast is clear.
We'd best be prudent, Wolverine. There is no telling what kind of security systems Magnus has in place. Internal security sensor override activated. Paragenetic biosignatures of intruders no longer registering as anomalous presence as per override command. Colossus allows the X-Men to arrive and pass without the security system alerting anyone else.
How goes the security watch, Nikolavich? Has there been any retaliatory activity on Earth?
On Earth? No, Jobbits, not on Earth.
They justly fear our Lord's wrath.
And the shame of it is, Katu, that your Lord has most certainly given them reason to. Quicksilver speeds on ahead past the guard, then inputs a disk into a computer terminal, allowing Xavier access to the system. He commands the computer to locate all mutants on the station. All of Magneto's acolytes, Exodus included, are teleported into airlocked pods and jettisoned off station. Now the X-Men can focus on confronting Magneto alone. That eliminates any miscellaneous opposition. I blame none of them for this, though. For all we know, Magneto has Magneto appears before them, enraged, and blasts them all with electromagnetic energy.
Has what, Charles? Offered them a better option than any of you could ever hope to? For that is all I have done. I have offered them hope and truth, opportunity and accomplishment. And I will continue to do so for all mutants who I deem worthy. And I will not let your X-Men stop me again.
Ouch! 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 Well, here goes the one thing we didn't want. A full-on head-to-head with the big guy.
The plan was to come in and nail him when he wasn't ready. So the plan's been changed a little, darling. All that means is we improvise.
Wolverine leaps at Magneto in a rage.
Ah, Logan, we dance the dance again and again. And you've never learned the steps very well, have you?
Eric throws him against a wall.
Magnus, wait! Don't you see this time? You've gone too far. People are dead down on Earth 'cause of you. You swore that would never happen again.
He wraps Rogue in metal cables.
I was mistaken. That is the price they must pay, Rogue.
Pay? For what? Pay simply for being human? Simply for being alive?
Jean, don't waste your energies in so futile a manner. Let the others occupy him. We must concentrate, as we discussed, on defeating him from the inside, from within his mind.
But they have no chance without us, Professor.
Their role is to provide the chance we need, not the opposite. Psi-link with my mind, Jean. I cannot break through Magnus' psychic defenses alone. I need you.
Jean Grey and the Professor join their psychic powers together.
To strike at his very core, with the expectation that, at the root of his goals and his obsessions, Magneto's life is built on a fragile sense of failure. That deep down inside, Magnus must know that his way is utterly, utterly wrong.
But Professor, this is wrong. It goes against everything you ever taught me.
Wonderful, Jean. What do you suggest? We scold him, and that's the end of that?
Gambit hurls charged cards at Magneto. One strikes him in the face, stunning him.
Ah! Now, Jean, Gambit provided us with the opportunity we needed.
We're in, Charles. Inside his mind. But he's fighting us.
He's fighting himself, Jean. Fighting his past. And we can use that inner turmoil against him. What? No.
Eric sees his parents dying in the concentration camps.
Oh, Charles, how far you've fallen. How very far. Make him feel the pain of losing his family, his loved ones, again in all its intensity.
Charles, I can't do this. It's wrong.
We have to, Jean, as distasteful as it is. We have to. Enough. You surprise me, Charles. I thought such manipulations abhorrent to you. You ask me, X-Men, why I do what I do, and I ask in return, how can you not? You see it in my mind, Xavier. How can you allow our race to be systematically eradicated by Homo sapiens, as so many innocents were by the Nazi butchers?
Magneto flings shards of metal at Gambit, who flips to dodge them.
Well then, Buckethead, sounds like killing everybody who don't agree with your point of view sure don't make you any better than they were, huh? Makes you...
One shard catches him in the mouth.
Silence, X-Man!
Remy, you heard him.
Rogue breaks free of her cables.
And because you know he was right, Magnus, you just couldn't face it, could you? Sure, there's been a mighty fine line between the road we walk and yours, but the difference between us, sugar, is still as simple as right and wrong. And go to war with humans, killing them, because maybe they feel the same way about you, don't make it right. And that's a belief we're willing to fight and die for.
She rushes forward and punches Magneto.
Charles, where?
At the gravesite of Doug Ramsey. Magneto sees himself at a grave. The young New Mutant who died while Magnus was headmaster of the school.
It hurt him deeply, Charles. His feelings, his grief were genuine. Is this right, to bring these memories out, to use them in this way?
What? Charles, what are you doing? Whatever it takes to defeat you, Father, and end this madness.
Quicksilver dashes in close and knocks off Eric's helmet.
Pietro, out of all of them, you have the audacity to confront me? Oh, my son, how sharper than a serpent's tooth is your betrayal. Time and time again, upon learning you and your sister, Wanda the Scarlet Witch, were my children, the children of my beloved lost Magda, you have been offered the opportunity to stand by my side, as was your right, as would have been my joy.
Magneto begins to crush his only son in retribution.
And what a wonderful father you would have made, Magnus, forcing your children to sit subservient to your whims, unable to even think for themselves, as you locked onto the iron in their bloodstreams and molded their very thoughts. We missed out on so much by losing your parental guidance, didn't we?
He sees his wife leaving him with their children.
Professor, this memory, it didn't happen this way. When Magnus's wife Magda left him, she was pregnant with Wanda and Pietro, and it was the first time he had used his powers in front of her. He wasn't Magneto then, simply Eric Magnus Lensher. Charles, if his memories are twisting, fracturing, his current life imposing itself on his past, then that means...
It means, Jean, that we are forcing him to question his own judgment, at last. What? Very devious, Charles, but in the face of your subversion, your befouling of my mind, I stand resolute. No, Father, you do not. Look at me. Look at what I have become because of you. Unable to love freely, unable to trust willingly, afraid to truly live a life with my wife, my daughter. I am tired of running away from my problems. I am tired of running away from you.
Quicksilver breaks free and attacks again.
Perhaps I did wrong by you and your sister, Pietro, but I loved your mother more than life itself, and I do not need you to blame me for things I so freely blame myself. But consider this, you have done equally wrong by me as well, my son. By rejecting my offer, you reject my hopes, my dreams, my chance to pass along an inheritance of mutant freedom onto you and my descendants. And I cannot allow you to do that, Pietro. There is too much at stake for our people to allow the son of the Overlord to reject his path. I cannot have my only son leave the paradise I hope to create here, to see him try and compromise my efforts on Earth below us. I cannot allow you to betray me, Pietro, to become my Judas. And so, as painful as it is for me, you must be sacrificed for the good of our people. My son must be slain!
Magneto lifts Quicksilver into the air and prepares a deadly blast as Wolverine approaches him from the side.
Sorry, Maggie. That just ain't gonna happen. Wolverine? No!
Wolverine leaps at him, disrupting the blast.
Jean, you must seize on this. It is the key. Magnus, feeling that his children always betray him, always fail him. From Pietra and Wanda down to Fabian Cortez, who gathered the acolytes of Magneto, only to use them in his grander scheme to betray Magneto and kill him.
Eric sees his betrayal by Cortez, distracting him.
Hesitating again, Mags? Big mistake. 'Cause here's where I show you how well I learned our little dance.
Wolverine slashes his chest with both claws in an X shape.
Oh, Logan, Logan, Logan. You have done this? The game's over, bub. Any man who tried and kill his own son deserves no less. Don't look so surprised. After all, ain't it what you would have done?
Logan! No!
Jean, you've severed the mind probe. I need you, Jean. My control over this armor is taxing me greatly. Now, while he is gravely injured, is our best hope of piercing the final barriers in Magneto's mind.
Professor, What's happened to you? Look at him. He's bleeding badly.
He's survived worse.
It's in our power to put a peaceful end to this right now.
Power is nothing, Jean. You have it. I have it. What matters most are the choices we make on how that power is used. And Magnus has made his choice abundantly clear. Ask the men on the Leningrad, the people who died today. Ask them all. A peaceful solution was lost to us long, long ago. We must enter his mind again, quickly, before...
Magneto uses his powers to hold his blood inside his body.
No more, Logan. Foolish, foolish man. It ends for us both now. Our long association, my most visceral enemy, my most respected foe, is over.
He holds Logan in his magnetic grip. Magnetic fire courses through Wolverine's body, and it begins with a small tug, an almost gentle pull.
What the?
A harder yank, then a wrenching tear. Metal begins to burst from beneath his skin.
Logan? Oh, Lord! Logan!
No, Magnus, for the love of God, don't do this! Now play the insolent. Now plunder the gods' privileges and give them to creatures of a day. What drop of your sufferings can mortals spare you? We are all but bit players in a tragedy far larger than any of us. A tragedy called life, Logan. But today, for you, perhaps for me, the curtain falls, and the play is finished.
Wolverine doesn't scream. Indeed, he doesn't even have time, as the adamantium which long ago was bonded to his very bones is destabilized on a molecular level, ripped from its moorings, and forced through his open wounds, erupting outward like water bursting through a dam. As he falls, the stillness of pure horror surrounds the killing ground, broken only by the voice of one person who has, since the day she first met him, and perhaps always will, love him.
Logan! Oh, Lord! Is he... He's still breathing?
Wolverine's body lies inert, surrounded by metal extrusions, but still alive.
Stubborn to the last, eh? What of you, Charles? What of your part in this fool's folly? Mine is the denouement, old friend. I have hidden behind our philosophical differences for too long, always willing to forgive you for your transgressions. I can no longer do that. You have shown an inability to change your ways, and I an unwillingness to make the hard decisions. Maybe in our own ways, we are both failures, Magnus. You for failing to rise above the horrors perpetrated on you in your past. And as for me, maybe I have failed as well, denying the need to stop such horrors, no matter what the cost.
Charles, Logan is still alive, just barely. I'm telekinetically keeping his body together, and telepathically preventing his mind from understanding how much damage was done to him. But we have to leave, now!
Hear that, Charles? A life needs saving. Such has always been your bailiwick, your clarion call. Billions of lives need saving, Magnus. We came here today to sacrifice our own, so that those lives may be saved from your misguided wrath.
Xavier holds Magneto by the collar.
By what right do you make such decisions, Charles? By what right do the choices you make for the lives of Homo sapiens and Superior alike make you any less misguided than I? It all boils down, finally, no matter how alike we are, to the fundamental difference in our views, Magnus. Mine is a dream to live in harmony with those who fear and despise us, to make them see the error of their ways, no matter the hardships we must endure, the sacrifices we must make to achieve that goal. And yours, quite simply, demands that we rule over those who would oppose us, no matter the cost in suffering and degradation. The difference between us is that of light and dark, love and hate, life and death. No more, Magnus. No more. Logan shall be the last. No one else will ever suffer. You caused the death of hundreds today, Magnus. Deaths I could have prevented had I stopped you years ago. You have killed too many, Magnus, and I have had enough. I will make sure, here and now, once and for all, that you never kill again.
Charles Xavier unleashes the full might of his psychic powers against Magneto.
Charles, I never thought you would.
Eric collapses, unconscious.
No! Magnus! Professor, what did you do to him?
I took away his greatest weapons, his hatred, his ego, his nightmares. I took them all. I took his mind away from him. God forgive me.
Jean, he's barely breathing. Oh, Lord, I can't do anything about it right now. I'm barely able to keep Logan's body from falling apart as it is. We have to get out of here. We have to get back to the mansion. The Professor, Wolverine, even Magneto need our help. We can teleport back, right? Can we leave now?
You will not be able to teleport back home, Rogue.
Peter?
Your battle has taken most of Avalon's systems offline. I have sent a signal to the mansion. Bishop is coming in the modified Blackbird. For the sake of Logan, and even of the Professor, I recommend you leave quickly, as soon as he arrives.
Peter, what about Magnus? What about you?
I am staying, Rogue. Magneto has been left in a vegetative state. He will need someone to care for him. What I could not do for my sister, Illyana, perhaps I can for him. Colossus picks up Magneto's body. That will be, in many ways, a most fitting penance for my role in this sad affair. I prevented Avalon's security systems from detecting you. My indiscretions allowed all of you free reign of the station. I am, in many ways, as responsible for this as Magneto is, or as are any of you. Jean telekinetically carries Logan as the X-Men prepare to leave.
Peter, you can't stay here. This whole place, its reason for being here. You know they're not right.
Maybe I do, Jean. Or maybe I am simply not sure what right and wrong mean anymore. In light of what has happened here today, can any of you be so certain of the choices you make?
Perhaps, Peter Nikolayevich, none of us ever were so certain. But does that in any way make them any less difficult, or any less important? No matter the consequences, no matter the pain, doing the right thing will always carry a heavy burden.
They leave this heaven, a shattered place, leaving behind one of their own, and perhaps a part of their innocence. And Peter Nikolayevich Rasputin finds he has no tears to shed for them, for Magneto, Illyana, or himself. And in the silence, one can almost hear the fading of a dream. The X-Men are headed for Earth in the Blackbird.
You ever been hurt so bad you couldn't hear anything but a high-pitched roar?
Y'all have to do something for him, Professor.
And then you realize that it was the sound of yourself screaming?
We just can't let Logan die. Not after all we just been through.
His wounds are so grave that even his mutant healing factor and his indomitable will are taxed to their very limits. The medi-unit we encased him in is doing all it can to stabilize his physical trauma. I am afraid it will require a psi-link incursion into the core of his subconscious to alleviate the psychic trauma. Jean?
I'm ready, Professor. But are you sure you're up to this?
Take my seat, Pietro.
The commander's seat? But Bishop!
Just do it. Nightmares persist.
There's a world on the other side of pain, full of horror and hopelessness and concentrated suffering, but there's no fear there. What's there to fear when you're in the middle of the worst that can happen?
Inside Logan's mind, the professor and Jean see that he is trapped on a large X and being torn apart by enemies from his past as rough spikes protrude from the land surrounding him.
My health is unimportant, Jean. Logan needs us, and I will not fail him. We're at the epicenter of Logan's most suppressed cataclysmic memories. Synapses long dormant, now triggered by the brutal association of his terrible ordeal at the hands of Magneto.
What are we waiting for, Professor? We have to get rid of all these.
No, you know better than that, Jean. I realize you're worried about Logan, but we must tread ever so cautiously here. These traumatic memories are interwoven into the fabric of Logan's personality. Just as the adamantium was bonded to Wolverine's bones. To indiscriminately excise these memories would be as damaging to his mind as Magneto's forced extraction of Wolverine's adamantium was to his body. As damaging as what I did to Magneto.
The memory of having his adamantium ripped out by Magneto is still bright and fresh in his mind.
How can we just stand by here and do nothing? What was the purpose of coming in here?
To wait and watch, and to be prepared to counter the collapse of the Matrix upon which the web of his personality is spun. To be encouragement in the realm of despair. To be friends at the brink of the ultimate loneliness.
Logan! He just passed through us, like a phantom, and he ignored us.
No, Jean. He is simply in transition, from one triggered memory to another. We are the phantoms. We are no more than a series of electrical impulses chasing those other impulses which comprise his memory through the neurons of his brain.
There's something immense coming over the horizon.
There's no horizon here. Remember, our point of view is skewed by the fact that we are inadequately interpreting another person's visual perceptions.
This is the stuff of fever dreams, but hauntingly familiar.
Familiar? This alien landscape?
Not familiar, maybe, but definitely not alien.
Ah, I see. It was the scale.
Scale? I don't... Oh, Lord!
Charles and Jean stand as tiny forms on Logan's gigantic body, floating in a tank.
It's the Genesis tank at the Weapon X project. We're now privy to events that Logan has never seen fit to share with us.
We're here to help him, Professor, but this is a violation of the worst order. It was wrong with Magneto. It's wrong here.
I did what had to be done with Magneto. As for Logan, the termination of this side link has already been necessitated by the plight of our re-entry vehicle.
Back in the Blackbird, the X-Men are suffering a difficult re-entry into the atmosphere. As turbulence shakes the craft, Logan's med pod comes loose and the X-Men are tossed about. The pod hits the wall.
He's conscious! The shock has awakened him!
Re-secure the meta-unit. Hold him steady while I administer another injection of metamorphine. No painkillers, Charles. It hurts 'cause my body is fixing itself. I can take it. Don't want to be numb. Gonna be numb forever after I buy the farm.
Oh, Lord! I can see him knitting himself back together!
If the trauma was localized and not of such magnitude, his mutant healing factor would have made him whole already.
I'd be dancing in the aisles, Charlie.
We don't have a clue about how the healing factor works, and this amount of damage may be too much of a strain on an overloaded system.
Ah, just as I feared. The wounds reopen. The healing factor can't keep up with the ongoing tissue deterioration.
He's burning up with fever. Can the meta-unit cool his body temperature down enough to keep him from going into shock?
The unit is just an interim device. It is only meant to stabilize a patient en route to a proper medical facility. Logan takes Jean's hand.
You know what I wish, Jean, darling? I wish things could have been different. But I'm glad you're finally gonna be happy.
Moira, can you hear me?
I'm standing by it. Shh! At the command center. Shh! As planned, Charles. But can you not use the telepathic link? The signal is not good at all.
I am already depleted from my battle with Magneto. I must conserve my psi strength to help Wolverine if he needs it. What I require from you, Moira, is for you to talk me through the medical procedures to keep Logan alive until we touch down.
Oh, Wolvie! Monitor his temperature constantly. If it goes above 108, he can go into convulsive seizures. Oh, and keep him talking, but dinna let him get self-absorbed and morbid.
The Blackbird begins to break down under the strain, and only Quicksilver is fast enough to constantly correct its course manually, but it is still up to Jean to hold the ship together with her telekinesis. On the ground below, the worried X-Men gather around Moira at the console.
The life systems are spiking. We're losing him. Gambit, you're taking over for me. Please monitor the meters closely. Stepping up for a promenade, Professor? Stepping in more aptly. It is necessary for me to re-enter Wolverine's mind and flatten out the brainwave spikes. Please bear in mind that if Logan should expire while my consciousness is resident in his mind, the shock will prove lethal to me as well.
Charles, I can't take it. First Illyana, and now Logan. Don't you give up on him. He would never give up on you. He would never write you off.
It's happening all over again. Just like the shuttle plummeting through the radiation storm, back when Jean turned into Phoenix. It's worse than I imagined. The silence vibrates with the brittle sound of screams. This is a bloody Shiloh of Logan's vital essence. Here, the pure line of logic has been intersected by the variable wave of pain, and been nullified. Here, the lame may walk, leap, and run. Here, the blind may see with electric eyes, and rip with claws of mythic metal.
Inside his mind, Wolverine battles on.
I'm coming for you, Mags. I'm gonna rip your guts out. Here is reenacted the personal Ragnarok of a shattered soul, staged with accumulated props and baggage of traumas past. I know where you live. It's the place where the lightning converges. Oh, Logan. It ends for us both now. Our long association, my most visceral enemy, my most respected foe, is over. So real. The ozone sears my nostrils. The lines of force that move planets are bent, channeled, and amplified.
He relives the fight with Magneto again, but this time it appears as it felt, Logan's flesh and muscle being stripped away from his skeleton.
No, it is not real. It is one man's perception, and I am walking, even running through it. Logan! And I have power here. I can surrender myself to this reality and affect it. I can stop Logan from being sucked into that awful light.
Charles struggled to pull Logan back from going into the light.
Let me go, Charlie. Let me go into that wonderful warmth. Hear that music? It's all the voices of everyone I ever loved, singing the end to loneliness and sorrow. It's the brilliant, shining chord of redemption. Logan, it's death. Charlie, don't you think I know that?
Brace yourselves! We're hitting a storm front!
Goodbye, Charlie. The light is calling me.
Logan slips out of Xavier's grasp.
The light.
An angel blocks his path to the light.
Who? I know you. Illyana. I'm ready to go, darling.
She kisses his forehead and pushes him back towards the world of the living.
What? Don't push me away, darling. Don't. Jean, forget about the wing and secure the hatch.
What happened to Logan, Professor? Why did you come out of his mind? Is he...
There's nothing more I can do for him. Concentrate on the hatch, Jean.
I need a situation report.
Jean held that old wing together long enough. We've got the airspeed down to below the resonating level.
The wing won't shake itself apart anymore. Now all Jean has to worry about is the hatch.
The hatch is not going to move. I'm not going to let it.
Jean focuses on the hatch.
Oh, Lord. He's going into cardiac arrest. Pulmonary stimulation is ineffective. Vital sign graphs are fading.
Somebody compute our course intersect with a meteorological update.
Got a readout, Bishop. We're heading smack dab into the heart of one riv snorter of an electrical storm. Lightning really can't harm us, unless it serves to break someone's concentration.
Lightning strikes the blackbird, and the hatch flies off.
It slipped, and I lost it. I need to replace the hatch. But with what?
Jean is sucked out through the hole, grabbing onto the edge.
I can't maintain control by myself. Can't hold on.
Help me, Remy.
Watch out, Jean. Gambit and Rogue are being sucked out towards the hatch.
No, I'm not going to let it happen.
Can't go into the light. Gotta go back. But how?
Get back up to the controls. I'm using all my psi strength to push you back up there. Get the blackbird under control.
Jean shoves the others away from the hole.
Jean.
Don't look back. Save the others.
She holds on by her hands as the wind buffets her.
How do I pull myself back? Am I out here all alone? Jean! Jean! Jean!
One hand left, and she's slipping.
Oh, Jean. Somebody's calling for you, Jean. Is that me? Am I calling you, Jean? I need your help. Can you hear me, darling? Give me your hand, Jean. Bring me.
From within the world with the light, Logan leaps toward the sound of Jean's voice. Her grip fails. Logan grabs her wrist, saving her.
Back!
Logan, we thought you were. Professor Xavier said you were.
I couldn't let it happen to you again, darling.
Logan, your life graphs had bottomed out on the meta-unit scanners. You came back? For me?
He pulls her inside.
You got it the other way around, Jean. It was you who reached out and took my hand.
Within the atmosphere, the plane stabilizes.
Time heals all wounds. Yeah, some better than others.
Moira tries to stop Wolverine from going into the X-Men's Danger Room session as the others practice a fighting program.
You're not going in there. As your position, I cannot abide it. With your healing factor so weakened and your bones leached to their adamantium, there's no telling what horrible and permanent injury you can inflict upon your thick head in the danger room. It's only been 2 weeks, man. You've got to give yourself time.
I appreciate your concern, Moira, but I need to prove that I still deserve a place on the team.
You'll always have a place with the X-Men. Don't you know that by now?
Only if I can pull my own weight, Jeannie.
The X-Men clear out to give Logan his chance.
Do I get my shot, Charlie? Am I a contender?
Very well. Let's see how well you perform against the battle droids. Be warned, Logan, these are not interactive holograms like the ones your teammates were just sparring with. These battle droids are quite solid. 2 robots leap down to engage Wolverine in battle.
Only 2 of the walking can openers? I can eat 'em for breakfast.
He dodges one as it hits the ground with a large spiked arm. He barely got out of the way in time.
That look on his face, it was...
Fear.
You have to put a stop to this, Charles.
No, Moira, I cannot. Logan has to know this about himself. He has to experience it. Logan ducks a slashing attack, but is struck by the robot's other arm. It slams him against the wall. That's enough. Get him out of there.
Hasn't he suffered enough? Oh, Wolvie.
He don't give up this one. Say home is a lion.
He's getting up.
Logan, it's up to you. Shall I terminate the exercise?
I'm just getting warmed up, Charlie. These piles of scrap metal and circuit boards ain't got nothing on the old knucklehead.
Turn it off, Professor.
Don't listen to her, Charlie. I may be down, but I ain't out, and I'm still the best at what I do.
The X-Men react in shock.
Oh!
My God! Wolverine has popped his claws on pure instinct, only to discover that bone claws have extended in place of his metal ones. Blood streams from his hands as he screams in pain. His claws!
They're bone! How can that be?
Get down there!
Get him to retract them. Stop the bleeding.
Shut down those battle droids.
Wolvie! Oh, I need the medic cart.
I should have suspected.
Number 2 sutures.
Of course, if the adamantium was leached.
Coagulant.
What about his healing factor?
And 2 units of whole blood. Wheel in the autoclave.
His healing factor used to close the wounds. You mean every time he...
Get him away. I got to go to him. Wolvie!
Logan and Jubilee hang out together under a tree on the mansion grounds. Jubilee pops a firework in front of Logan's face.
Huh? What was that for?
I can control my paths better now. If I place them just right and juice them up to the max, I can do a lot of damage. Even kill. I never thought that my hate for those 2 creeps who killed my parents could amplify my powers. It was like waking up with a loaded gun in my hand.
Logan extends his bone claws.
And you chose the old knucklehead to have a heart-to-heart with about it? Darling, there's things about myself I ain't got clue one about. Like, if these claws of mine are bone, then I must have been born with them. How come I can't remember that before they was bonded with adamantium? How come I always thought they were implants?
He retracts them.
How can your hands heal if you keep...
I pop them out a few times a day now. Keeps the channel open. Like pierced ears.
So, it stopped hurting?
Nope.
Oh. I guess my problems aren't very important compared to...
They are to me, darling. Before I came to this place, I was like walking in a red haze all the time. There was stuff rolling around inside of me. I don't know what it was or where it came from. And I was angry all the time. Like some hungry, hurt animal stalking through the woods. Then I came to Salem Center, and it was like coming home. 'Cause home's where you don't have to explain yourself, 'cause everybody knows what you're all about. All us motherless children wandering through the storm, and all of a sudden there's a light in a window, and somebody to take us in and close the door against the wind. Old Charlie Xavier. You stick with the professor, darling. He can help you deal with your powers. He can show you how to live with it, to have meaning. That's the ticket. You stick with Charlie Xavier, and he'll set you straight. You got a light, darling?
She lights his cigar.
What about you, Wolvie? You sound like you're not going to be around to help me out.
Gah.
He tosses it away.
Time I quit these nasty old things anyway. Dear Jubilee, this is just to say that I am going away because it is the best thing I can do. Without my adamantium lace skeleton, and my healing factor not being what it used to be, I ain't hardly the best any longer. I am just a liability to the rest of the team. I should retire my pinstripes before I get traded to the miners. I understand that you are going through a difficult time right now. I wish I could stay here for you, but it just cannot be. I'm not going to tell you that you have to be strong, because you're one of the strongest people I've ever met. You have the strength to go on being happy and have fun, despite the bad things that happen to you and the horrors you've seen. You don't have a callus on your soul like some folks who had it half as bad as you. So you go on laughing, darling. Hold on to your wonder. Ah, here I go getting preachy. You just stick to Professor Xavier like glue. You hear me? He did all right by this old knucklehead, and he will do good by you. Do not be sad for me, Jubilee. I'm starting a whole new phase in my life, a new adventure. So think of me sometimes and smile, 'cause that is how I'll always remember you. And remember that I'll always miss you, more than you will ever know. Love, Logan.
Leaving behind a series of letters for the people who matter to him, Logan leaves the mansion behind and goes off on his new adventure of self-discovery to find out who he is now, without his adamantium. On Muir Isle, off the coast of Scotland, the leader of Excalibur, Nightcrawler, struggles with one of the acolytes who attacked the hospital on the edge of a cliff while he brags about the innocent humans he killed. Crossing swords. Kurt wraps his tail around the acolyte's neck and kicks him off of him. He teleports on top of him while holding a large rock. The acolyte dares Kurt to kill him, and to his own shock, he brings down the rock he's holding. Luckily, Kitty Pryde made him intangible in time to prevent Kurt from becoming a murderer. She tells him it's not his fault. A death wish triggering attacks like that is part of this mutant's power.
Aren't we wasting an awful lot of compassion on a genetic supremacist?
There but for the grace of God, Rachel.
Nuh-uh. I don't buy that, Kurt. There are good guys, like us, and then there's everybody else.
Surely, mein Freund, you do not believe it is that simple a distinction.
The Blackbird arrives, carrying Xavier and the X-Men.
After all, there's still something to be said for doing the right thing. Wouldn't you agree, Professor?
Certainly. It's for that very reason we've come all the way from the United States, to enlist Excalibur's aid in redressing a most grievous error on the X-Men's part. We would have called ahead, people, but as you'll discover, we couldn't risk anyone learning what we had planned. If we could step inside and discuss this, time is of the essence.
When Professor Xavier, Jean Grey, and Cyclops come knocking.
Your wishes are, etc., etc., etc.
I sincerely hope you feel that way, Catherine, after I tell you why we're here, and what we plan, what we must do in order to save one of our own. Charles explains to Kitty and the rest that Colossus is still suffering from a head wound and remains unable to safely transform back to his human form. He has concocted a plan to use Kitty to lure him down to Earth, in order to forcibly provide him the needed medical assistance, both for his own good, and so they can be sure he's choosing to stay with the Acolytes while of sound mind and body. Kitty recoils at the request to lie to her dear friend, even in the circumstances, but eventually the professor convinces her to cooperate. Kitty beams a message to the satellite Avalon, and Colossus receives it. He trusts her implicitly, and he is given leave to go and attend to his Earth business, with the understanding that upon his return, that part of his life will be done with. He agrees and prepares for his journey. Cable is back in action after literally putting himself back together with his telekinesis and the other resources at the X-Force base. Elsewhere, Camp Verde, Arizona to be exact.
I have pinpointed the origination point, Nathan. Muir Isle, Scotland. I trust I should mobilize the rest of X-Force?
You trust wrong, Professor. I have unfinished business with the Acolytes. On account of their ersatz leader reducing me to a centerfold in spare parts quarterly. In all likelihood, Colossus is being set up. Xavier engenders too much loyalty for me to believe his former students are defecting in droves.
But according to the cross-reference, there exists a very strong interpersonal relationship between Catherine Pryde and Peter Rasputin, on a multitude of different time continuum variants.
Trust me, Professor, he's being set up, as sure as my name is Cable.
Technically, your name is Nathaniel Dayspring Ascani.
When you're through performing for your audience of one, I want a body slide as close as you can get me to Muir Isle. Compensating for the electromagnetic interference, of course.
Within the minute, everyone has taken his place.
How did this happen? Wasn't it yesterday I stepped out of the cab in front of that massive mansion in Westchester? Determined I was not only going to be an X-Man, but I was going to be Mrs. Peter Rasputin, or Mrs. Catherine Pryde Rasputin, or Katya Anilovich Rasputin. Kids. Charles, you promised me you would take it easy after you used the psionic exoskeleton to confront Magneto.
Which is why you are here, Jean. Now shush, please. I am picking up Colossus's psi imprint. Prepare yourselves, everyone. He is here.
Just as Cyclops figured, they're teleporting him down to Earth using Vogt's transubstantiation power.
Colossus appears before Kitty.
Katya?
Oh, Peter, I knew you'd come. I knew you couldn't possibly have changed that much.
Changed, Katya? No, I do not believe I have changed at all. Rather, it was the world which changed around me. Changed to the point where I cannot believe in the Professor's methods anymore. Magneto and the Acolytes who follow him understand that we cannot sit passively as the humans seek to slay us, to kill mutants with the same savage ignorance which took the lives of my parents, simply because they gave birth to mutants. any more than we can continue to allow such madmen as my brother and Stripe to visit death upon our genetic brethren. Imagine, Katya, how happy I am to discover you have come to the same conclusions.
At that moment, on the far side of Muir Isle, Cable scales a rocky cliffside. Again, I apologize for the inconvenience.
Yeah, and your sincerity is just about oozing out of every one of your computer chips. You really want to make it up to me? Scan the area for hostiles, and try to come up with specific directions once I get topside.
That may not be possible at this moment. Again, the electromagnetic pulse makes it considerably difficult to...
Forget it, Professor. I'll find the acolytes myself.
Or you could always ask me, politely.
What's going on here, Professor? My mind has always been out of reach of size sensitives in this timeline, so tell me who's pushing my buttons, and how?
Scanning.
Scan faster!
Allow me, Cable.
Cable is telekinetically lifted to the cliff top.
I recognize this energy signature, Professor, which means the person responsible is Phoenix.
Since we're no doubt going to spend the next 20 minutes slugging it out to keep you from interfering with our plans to help Colossus, there's no need to be so formal. You can call me Rachel Summers.
Huh?
Nathan?
Quiet. You say that as if it should mean something to me.
He aims his large gun at Phoenix.
Maybe because it does?
The acolytes are far from perfect, Katya. The atrocities they committed under Cortez's reign were unforgivable. But Exodus, I am convinced, has a firmer grasp of Magneto's commandments.
Commandments? Peter, listen to yourself. You're talking as if Magneto was your own personal savior.
I know that he is a man of flesh and blood like any other, just as I know he has lived an entire life dedicated to his ideals. Had I been as strong, as brave as he, perhaps my sister, my entire family, would still be safe on our farm on the Udstordansky Collective. Now, Jean, grab him psionically. I would do so myself, if I could.
No, Charles. Not yet.
We tried it the Professor's way, Katya. No one tried harder than I.
Colossus brushes Kitty's hair.
But don't you see, Peter? It wasn't the dream that failed you. It was the reality.
Jean, I insist. Every instant you refuse to act, you place Kitty in greater jeopardy.
I don't think either of us believes that, Charles. Despite everything that has happened, everything he has endured, Peter would never do anything to hurt Kitty.
She takes his hand.
You are not coming with me, are you?
No, and I can't let you leave. Not yet.
You phased me? So that I can't move? Can't escape?
I had to, Peter, for your own good.
Don't struggle, Colossus. We're not going to do anything to hurt you.
These restraints will allow us to help you. No! Don't you people understand? I don't want your help! Not at this moment, Peter, but someday, I trust, you will appreciate the effort.
Kurt puts power-controlling shackles on Colossus. With the shackles in place, Colossus is unable to move, unable even to utter a sound. But his expression of rage, of a man betrayed by his love, speaks volumes. It is a sight Kitty Pryde will remember every day for the rest of her life. Not far away.
I don't suppose you'd consider letting us handle this mess in-house?
All bets were off the moment Colossus left the X-Men to become an acolyte. Or hasn't it occurred to you people that he's cast his lot with a group of homicidal religious zealots?
Guilty by association, is it?
Cable fires, but Phoenix dodges his blast.
Don't try to confuse the issue. Peter made his decision. I intend to see that he deals with the consequences.
He jump kicks her and flips away.
Ah! Judge, jury, and executioner? Good golly, good gosh, Cable. Where would the world be without you?
Trust me, you don't want to know.
Cable fires again, collapsing a rocky wall on her. Burying her under a ton of rock?
She's the Phoenix, a cosmic entity. Why? Did I overreact? I'm not being too tough on her. I just know what I'm up against.
A tad. She appears, having avoided the attack.
Always wondered if that would work.
How did she do that?
Apart from her responsibilities as vessel for the Phoenix Power, it appears Miss Summers is what will colloquially be referred to in our century as a time tripper, possessed of the ability to propel herself along the chronological continuum.
I pushed myself 10 seconds into the future to avoid being crushed by the rocks. Your computer buddy is pretty smart, Cable.
But the professor was on an internal modem. You shouldn't have been able to hear him inside my head.
There are a lot of things I shouldn't be able to do. In fact, I kind of pride myself on being unpredictable.
She dives at Cable, but suddenly her uniform changes to both of their surprise.
Yeah, so I see.
The lab. Colossus has been loaded into a gigantic machine.
Funny. For years I had this whole reunion fantasy all planned out. 1 part 14-year-old schoolgirl crush, 2 parts woman with an agenda. So much for the power of positive thinking.
While I do not wish to cut you short, Kitty, I do not doubt for a moment that Peter's newfound allies will be searching for him soon. With you phasing his omnium armor to the point it is malleable without being intangible, in tandem with mine and Jean's psionic monitoring of his biogenetic processes, I'm confident Cyclops' optic blast will serve as the repulsor's scalpel needed to correct Colossus' condition. Ready when you are, sir. Then let us begin.
This, then, is the entire purpose of Muir Isle, a facility dedicated to addressing the problems unique to an entire race. An island medical research center, perhaps in need of people determined to see it survive any external threat to its continued existence?
Begin, Cyclops. Optic blast to 0.933%. Channel the repulsor scalpel to the prearranged coordinates, and pray that all this guesswork pays off.
Cyclops fires his optic blast into Colossus' head with total precision.
What? The monitor we jury-rigged to register both power has just been triggered.
Continue your respective errands of mercy. I will attend to our visitor.
Visitors, Kurt. There's apparently more than one.
But her words are lost as Nightcrawler teleports away. As opposed to the professor, who, for the moment, is at a loss for words.
I could really use a sensor reading here.
The professor program responds in binary code.
0100100101.
Professor, snap out of it.
01001. Oh, my apologies, Nathan. The overlapping readings, compounded with her tenuous connection to our own symbiotic relationship, was disconcerting at the very least. As near as I can discern, Rachel is co-opting her personal space in the time continuum with another entity.
And judging by the costume, it isn't too terribly difficult to figure out who the other entity is.
I'm here, the Scanny son. Find me. Help me.
What? What did you call me?
What are you talking about? Didn't call you anything.
It appears, Nathan, she has no clear memory of what just happened.
Not good enough, Professor. Not good enough by half. I'm not a big fan of any mystery I'm not at the center of, Rachel. Which means you and I are going to have ourselves a marathon sit-down until we can figure out what just happened.
Fine with me, Nathan. Feel free to look me up after you stop seeing double.
She unleashes a powerful psychic attack on him, and Cable is knocked out.
Ugh.
Sorry about the psionic sucker punch, Cable. But according to the stray thoughts I'm picking up from Nightcrawler, a couple of uninvited guests are about to check in here at the Muir Hotel. All of which places you and yours on the last rung of the unsolved riddle ladder.
I am certain he will appreciate your priorities.
Professor? You're still conscious?
Online, actually, but that is merely an argument of semantics.
Can you explain to me this connection I feel for this man? There is a bond between us. I can feel it. In my heart. In my soul.
There are too many variables along the time continuum that must be analyzed before I can answer that question, Miss Summers.
Could or would?
Either. This can all wait for another day. Your teammate may not be as fortunate. Nightcrawler arrives outside to find 3 acolytes come to collect Colossus. He leaps to attack them. Peter, son, I need you to relax, to trigger your transformation into your human form.
But my wound
Is healed, but the trauma to your system was so great,
I don't dare commandeer your thoughts. It's up to you, Peter. Trust me.
Colossus releases his mutant power, which erupts from his body as he returns to human form.
All that pent-up energy within him has been released. The readings are off the scale.
Kitty, get clear!
I'm fine, Cyclops. The energy has no effect on me in my phased form. Even if it did, nothing could get me to leave Peter's side. Not until I know if he's all right.
All right, Katya. I do not honestly feel I will ever be all right again. For though my body has been mended, I believe my heart may be beyond repair. And in truth, I don't know that I'd want it any other way.
You don't mean that, Peter. You can't.
Can't I? Don't you see? Don't any of you realize that if I let myself feel anything, if I am anything less than the cold and hard armored warrior in both form and function, that I will have nothing left but the realization that I failed Illyana.
Kitty helps him as he is released from the machine.
Don't ever think that, Peter. Even for a moment. You did everything humanly possible. The legacy virus is something you couldn't control.
I'm her brother. I should have been there. I should have been there.
You were there. In her every thought. You were the smile on her face. The light in her eyes. You were there, Peter. In every way that truly mattered.
She holds him as he finally engages with his emotions and cries in her arms. Nightcrawler is holding his own against the Acolytes, and he is soon joined by Cyclops and Phoenix, who add their powers to the fight. But it is soon interrupted, the Acolytes claiming that Colossus should be free to choose, just as he comes outside and agrees.
But Rasputin came here in good faith, and should be allowed to leave if he so wishes.
I feel the same way.
Boss?
There is no need to continue this fight, Volt. I have every intention of honoring my word to Exodus, and will return with you to Avalon. But you should know this. I am doing so because I genuinely believe my presence might make a difference. That I can convince you that the man who was Magneto stood for much more than blood and violence and death. That the difference between his goal and that of Xavier's is nearly identical in intent, if not in execution.
On behalf of all of us, Rasputin, we look forward to whatever light you can shine upon our Lord Savior.
Goodbye, Godspodin Xavier. For although I don't blame you for my sister's death, I do not feel you, or any of us who pursue your dream, have done all we can to help our kind. When you found me, I was an atheist, raised to serve the state. For better or worse, you made me believe in something, and I can never return to my belief in nothing. For that, at least, I will always be grateful. Katya?
Kitty stops Peter's words and kisses him goodbye. Colossus resumes his organic metal form and teleports away with the Acolytes. Sunset. Excalibur say goodbye to the X-Men as they board the Blackbird. We're all set to depart, Kurt. Of course we'll drop you off in England on our way.
Danke, Scott, but that won't be necessary. Kitty, Rachel, and I have discussed it, and we feel that Excalibur might function best as an extension of Moira's work here on Muir Isle. The enchanted blade serving as metaphor for a scalpel, if you will, cutting deep into the problems that fall between the cracks of X-Men, X-Factor, and X-Force. Assuming, of course, that the good doctor will have us?
I would be honored.
What prompted this decision?
By helping Peter instead of fighting him. We realize therein lies our strength as a team. Perhaps our purpose. We're hoping we can stop a problem before it becomes a disaster, instead of the crisis management favored by everyone else wearing an X on their costume.
The world is getting smaller, Scott, every day. The global makeup of the Acolytes alone should indicate there are mutants across the planet who have never heard of Charles Xavier and his dream of genetic harmony between Homo sapien and Homo superior. It falls to us to cut a swath of tolerance and understanding through the blanket of ignorance and fear that often separates our two races.
What he's trying to say is, we believe that now, more than ever, the world needs the new Excalibur.
Epilogue. 1 mile directly above, as far removed physically from his followers as he is spiritually, sits the chosen messiah of the Acolytes. Born Eric Magnus Lensher, he spent many years of his life known as the mutant named Magneto. Self-proclaimed master of magnetism, and self-appointed savior of the mutant race. Those days are over. Magneto sits in his throne, still catatonic. Exodus cares for him and commands the Acolytes in his stead.
They doubt, my lord. There are those among your flock who feel that you, through no fault of your own, have abandoned them. They think simply because Charles Xavier shut down your mind, that you no longer see, no longer hear, that you neither taste nor feel. Why, Lord? Why do they doubt that I am not only your most favored disciple, but the eyes and ears and voice of Magneto as well? How dare they doubt me? How dare they doubt us?
But there comes no reply from this empty vessel of a man. No answer, save, perhaps, the whispers that echo within the head of the man called Exodus. A trial is held by Exodus, and Colossus speaks up for the victim, defending his innocence in betraying the Acolytes and reminding them all of the ideals that Xavier and Magneto both shared despite their differences, with an impassioned speech, and the victim is granted mercy. Later.
So tell me, Rasputin, was it worth it? To win your case while at the same time alienating yourself from the rest of us?
I don't think that is what happened, Amelia. If nothing else, I'm confident that the rest of the Acolytes heard my words. How long, I wonder, before they understand in their hearts that these are the true words by which men such as Professor Xavier and Magneto lived their lives? It is that question which haunts Exodus as he returns to his master's side, a doubt he feels gnawing at the very heart of his soul, a doubt that after today the Acolytes will no longer believe he alone speaks for his lord. A doubt that might weaken him as surely as Magneto fell before Xavier. Without their faith, Exodus has nothing. Rather than face Magnus, he wanders the halls of Avalon, ever alone. And thus he is not on hand to witness the faintest of a smile which appears like a faded memory across the face of a man. An enigmatic smile that signals, perhaps, the return of a Messiah? The end. The story of Logan's bone claws would be told in Wolverine's own book over the next 5 years. I can tell you here that he became much lighter and faster in combat, and after recovering from the damage we saw him take, his healing factor would become much stronger as well, without having to combat the poisonous metal all the time. His claws would break, sometimes rather easily, but would quickly grow back. These new tools, along with his classic indomitable spirit, allowed him to rise to the new challenges and grow as a hero, until eventually his adamantium was replaced by Apocalypse when he made Wolverine his new horseman, Death. Magneto would remain in his catatonic state for a few years to come, not reappearing as his old self again until 1998. But while Xavier may have bought the world a time of peace from Eric, he has also unleashed one of the greatest villains in X-Men history with his actions. For when he wiped Magneto's mind, the darkest parts of Eric's psyche actually escaped into Xavier's head, sowing the seeds for Onslaught to appear later, the psychic combination of both of their minds' darkest aspects fused into one being. And he would menace the X-Men once again in this new form. But that's a story for another day. Following the eventual destruction of Avalon, Colossus would find a new home among the mutants of Excalibur. As I pointed out before, this story was made to celebrate 30 years of X-Men being published at the time, and it's been about 30 years since this story until now. And it's fun to look back on the long history and legacy that they've had, and all the other forms of media they've been adapted to since then. For as much as I love adapting comics in this way so you see what they're actually like, let's not discount the power of adaptations. After all, if not for a certain X-Men cartoon in the 90s, I might not have become a comics fan to begin with. Well, that'll do it for this one, so take care out there, and as always, thanks for watching.